Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast, and this is episode 29, and today we're going to focus on one sole game, and that game this week is Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is one of those games I think most of us know about this game today, but back in the day I know a lot of people in this niche of what this game is started talking pretty well about this one. A whole lot of friends gave a real big buzz about this game. I was just a little bit curious because I've only seen a little bit of videos on this game and I was thinking like, oh, what type of game is this and so on. My friends started playing this and they were really hooked into this experience. And we're basically going to go through a little bit of why people tend to get into this experience. And I hope I will be able to paint up the correct picture for this, basically. Because, of course, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to these type of games and so on. But I just wanted to experience a little bit more since I started playing this yet again recently. And I want to go into the music a little bit. I am your host, Christopher Queenström, and now let's dive into this week's composer for this game. So, the composer for this game is none other than Clark Aboud, and Clark, he is a British composer and producer working with both music and sounds for games. And his first original soundtrack that he made for a game is Time Frame back in 2015. After that, he also worked on Crashing Season, which was released the same year, and in 2016, he worked on Crazy Machines 3, and in 2017, the release of Slay the Spire, which became his first hit when it comes to an OST as well. In 2018, he worked on the game soundtrack for Gravity, and in 2019, he strikes yet again with another soundtrack, and this time for the BAFTA-winning game Kind Words. And in 2022, he composed a soundtrack for the game Lost Eidolons, and he also for that soundtrack wrote 2 different tracks as well, and these specifically are vocal tracks. And the last game he had worked on to date is the online game Videoverse, which was released back in 2023. So, Clark, he is also, as said, the sole composer, but he also worked on the sounds for Slay the Spire. So he really brought the full audio, like the audio situation for this game. Considering all the different mechanics and all the different sounds you have the different slashes, spells coming in of different elemental variations and other sort of affinities. But overall, I think the experience you have in this game on the audio side is pretty interesting. But before we start diving into the full game, because if I keep going talking about the sounds, I will definitely go into the game as well. So let's go through who made this game before we dive into the first song of the week and then start talking about the game. Slay the Spire were developed by the American indie studio Megacrit, and the game was initially released back in 2017, as said when we were talking about the composer here. The release was for Linux, Windows, and Macintosh, with the game being like a hit right away, to be honest. Right from the start, people started playing this game, and of course, Megacrit noticed this hit and started working on more ports, and this time for consoles, which were released in 2019. And the releases then were happening for the PS4, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One. Later in 2020, the game were also getting an iOS exclusive, which was then iPad and iPhones, of course. And in 2021, we also finally had a release for Android and PlayStation Now service. Also to remind, there were some multiple releases and updates for this game, releasing new content, etc. We will go through these as we move along in this episode. With that said, I think it's time for us to dive into the first track of the week. This is the main theme of the game, which has the same name as the game. So the track name and also the track title for the game is Slay the Spire. that was the first track from the game with the same title of this track, Slay the Spire. And yep, I am just as excited as you might be for this episode as well. Not just because of the music, but trying to get me to talk well about this game. No, I'm just kidding a little bit. No, Slay the Spire is actually a really good game, to be honest. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the basic concept of the game to start with. So, when it comes to Slay the Spire is a game where you basically will play a roguelike deck building game. When I'm saying deck building here, I'm actually being honest here. You are playing with cards in this game. You have visuals that will represent you, your character, and the items and such you have, together with icons and so on that will represent specific affinities or dots, etc. that you will have on your character. On the other side, you will also have the enemies, and all these will most likely be always represented with you being on the left side and the enemies being on the right side. Surrounding everything else in the bottom, you will have your cards, much like other card games such as Hearthstone, etc. Just to have one game that maybe a lot of people know by, because you might have missed this one. Even though in 2017 this was a hit, there were still a lot of people talking well about this game over the course of time. But over time we started noticing that more and more people that were niche into the deck building community started playing this way more than other people. So I wouldn't say that Slay the Spire is more of a mainstream game today, but from the people that play the game, they actually had a really good experience with this. And this is also due to the fact that both the developers and the people playing this game are in love with games on board games with the same mechanics, aka being deck building. So, in Slay the Spire, with your character that you will choose, you will have 1 out of 4 different characters, where 3 will of course be locked in the beginning, and over time you will unlock more and more characters that are playable to start with. When you select these characters, in the beginning you will begin with the character called the Ironclad. This is basically the warrior of the bunch. He has powerful strikes and excellent defensive options. And of course, when it comes to the choices between these, benefits comes from sacrificing one for the other. So, in the beginning, you will have some sort of HP, you will have some sort of relic that boosts you in any form or shape, depending on how you start out this game. Because there are some differences that might appear or happen in this. The more you play this game, the more you will level up. The more you level up, the more cards will be available for you in this game. But it is much stuck with chance when it comes to this game, because in this game, moving around, defeating enemies to loot new cards, upgrade cards, etc., depending on what kind of path you go down in. And when I'm talking about paths, yes, you will decide paths in this game. So when you're starting out in Act 1, which is the Exordium, you will choose 1 out of like up to 5 paths I think I've seen the most. And these will take you through like a random course. You will be able to see this full path. Every time you beat the battle, you will always return to this little map. But of course you can't really change path unless you have an item that defines that you are able to do so. Of course it exists. But in this you will select your path that you think is the most appropriate path for you to take. And during all this, just think of it like a Mario game. So you will go from one dot to the other, and you will have like a legend, like an icon that defines what type of event you will have. Will you have a boss battle? Will you have an epic boss battle? Or not just bosses, monster battles is what I'm looking for, not boss battles per se. Of course, everything, there are mini bosses that you are able to fight against and gain more powers, etc. But of course, high risk, high reward. And by the end of everything in each and every act of this game, there is a main boss. And these bosses, there are 3 different variations of bosses in each and every act, which gives more of a replayability to this game. And of course, unlocking new weapons and cards, etc. Not just weapons, I'm sorry. Cards in these games, you will be able to have much better replayability, and especially if you succeed in playing these character and roles and unlocking the next classes, you will be able to play like a whole other type of styles. But yeah, now we're going back to the card mechanics themselves. So one of the reasons why the developers and the people niched in this are so like in love with this game is due to the fact that the developers of this game has actually looked at many classical and popular deck building games, such as Dominion, for example. Like a really good board game that has a lot of replayability, and there's so many things that basically no playthrough is the same, or maybe the same, because you have so many different variation and combinations that you can take, basically. And the same goes for Slay the Spire. You really don't know what will happen, but over time you will learn to identify certain events and so on. When it comes to this game, there are nothing. The game is kind of working against you all the time. That's kind of the charm of this roguelike game. But over time, you will notice that even when the game is kind of making something negative for you, you always gain something positive surrounding or about it. So, in the beginning, things might look really grim. The game is really hard. Over time, you will learn to master these techniques with the different characters. Every character has a unique kind of set of skills, etc. And over time, as you upgrade your skills, and you upgrade your cards, and getting new ones, getting relics that will give you more passive bonuses, or maybe sometimes they will just add like a new mechanic to the game that you can utilize. For example, there is a fan inside this game that every time you utilize an attack specific card, it will gain like a counter on it, and this counter, when it reaches a specific number, it will do automatic damage, for example. And I just love these kind of mechanics. You always have to be on your toes surrounding this, and at the same time, when you're playing this type of game, when it comes to deck builders, you kind of want to thin out so you only have the best cards available to you. But this is where these deck builders and also Slay the Spire shines the most. It's a large freaking sacrifice that's going to happen here. Sometimes you won't even have enough coin in order to continue in a good manner, so you have to make sacrifices. But over time, you will learn, you will also start defeating bosses as you learn the different tactics with the Iron Clan, for example, in the beginning. And this will take you to the second act of the game, and also the second track of this week, which will be the theme music for this specific area in Act 2. So the track title for the second track of the week is called The City. Second track of the week, this was The City from Slay the Spire. And yeah, I totally forgot because I was so interested in just talking about the game mechanics for this game. Of course, when we're talking about the first track that we'll listen to, it had a really nice, serene kind of neatness to it. But it felt more like the dramatic I would say, dramatic kind of influence that you try to have to keep someone calm and to have someone relax. Because when it comes to the game experience, of course you can relax in between, but you have some sort of stress that kind of builds up with your choices. Of course you can always strategize and try to see, because you have no pressure with time or anything, unless you really need to go to bed. But you don't really have any sort of time pressure. You can literally look at one screen and plan your next move for 20 minutes and nothing will happen. Considering that sense, with this first track that we'll listen to in this episode, this one has the serenity and was serene to keep calm and to have like a welcome to the game. And I really enjoy this. Considering the second act that we have here, we played through the first act, we had the battles, we had the events, we beat the first boss. We get the city. Everything is just like, hey, no real congratulations, to be honest. All you get is a new sort of power-up, a relic, so to speak, these passive bonuses. And then they just ship you off. You get some HP as well, but then they just ship you off to the next act, and that's the city. And in the city, as acts prolong, of course, enemies also get stronger. They gain new mechanics, and you need to utilize your deck. In Act 2, this is where you need to kind of start bending your deck to your will, so to speak, because usually in Act 2 is, at least for me, that's when all the shit goes wild. It's really hard, especially getting these boss battles, but they have uniqueness to them. So of course, in all these battles, they're all random, you don't know exactly who you're gonna get, etc. But if you have the correct type of build and can get your little combo up and running, you can defeat a lot of things pretty fast and hectic, in some sense at least. No, but I like, so the city soundtrack here, it is more dramatic now, considering and comparing to the other music that we've been listening to in this game so far. Being, well, today's episode with the main theme, but also from what we have in the first section. Of course, we're going to listen to more of a battle music later, and considering that, of course, battle music is more, it has more adrenaline to it. But when you're looking at these levels, you have these more serene kind of styles, and overall with this soundtrack, unless it is a boss battle or a monster battle theme, it has this more serenity to it, and I really like this type of music. Only by itself, it is pretty emotional, to be honest. It feels like it could fit another type of game. For me, when I'm listening to The City right now, I feel like this could be a track from Hollow Knight, for example. It comes with a lot of similarities of the instruments they use, but also how they progress throughout the songs, and I really love and adore this. Maybe not, Slay the Spire is not the ultimate soundtrack that I would be listening to and enjoy over and over again, but from time to time, I would like to think that I would like to listen to a track or two. But anyway, in consideration to Act 2, I want to also present my favorite character of the game, which is called the Silent One. This is basically the Huntress type of character, a formidable character which builds on a classic rogue style within fantasy RPGs. A cunning character that weakens their foes with both strikes and poison, but also uses cheap tricks to avoid damages and outplay your enemies with the strongest cards at ease. But this also comes with, of course, as I said, this is a rogue-based type of character. I really love and adore this. I want to play this as good as possible, but it also is kind of a hit or a miss as well, because depending on what type of cards you get presented for you, you might need to do more sacrifices with this type of character. But if you are able to get things up, you can really focus on being defensive while some poison is slowly biting away on the enemy. And damage from poison is that unique type of damage where it deals damage and then it just keeps ticking downwards, dealing less and less damage. But if you do anything else that does and add more poison to it, it just stacks up, just removing one damage at a time. So as long as you're able to play some sort of defensive type or gain more energy points. I haven't really talked about the energy points, so I think this is a good understanding of where we can discuss energy a little bit. So in this game you also have energy, which is basically the resource to cast these cards. So all cards comes at a cost, and every character has 3 from what I know, with all the 3 main characters that I've been playing with. There is a 4th added, but we will talk about that one a little bit later. But with the first 3 characters, you have 3 energy to utilize in order to cast cards. In order to get more energy, you need to either play cards that specify giving energy, more energy, or giving you back energy, or generate it somehow. Or you can have resources such as the relics, for example, or artifacts, etc. Relics and artifacts, I think they have similarities, but I think sometimes they utilize some words. I know some people have said artifacts, but I think relics is the main word of the game they utilize in this game. And when it comes to these relics, they can also provide, like, hey, you gain 1 more energy, but you won't be able to see the HP, or you might not be able to see the intent of an enemy of what they're going to do. Because that is also a part of the planning process. Yes, there are intents in this game, so above each and every enemy within the game, you will be able to see what they are going to do next. This also includes the amount of damage an enemy will do to you if they are going to attack you. So considering this, you are able to plan not ahead, but you are really able to plan your next move, or the current move you're about to make, and you already kind of know the consequences of it. So it all comes down to what the hell you're going to do. Are you going to get the debuff, or are you going to protect all the damage but sacrifice damage on the enemies in order to have a greater hand the next round? I don't know. It is a tough choice to do, and there are so many times that I sacrificed and done the wrong thing. But over time, as I said, you will learn the different mechanics, you will learn combos, and you will start like understanding the full game of this, and you will take clearer actions. I love and adore this mechanic of these games, and that's why I find it so fascinating. And considering the music that we have in this game, I really love and adore it. It's easy said and done, I guess, because it's really hard to make good music, and that is why it's so important to talk about it. And considering all the friends I've asked surrounding this game, I know I asked some people that I know love this game, and I talked to some people that are not super enthusiastic about this game but have played it. It's like, what did you think about this game and its music? And overall, people either said the game music is mediocre, or they said they actually turned it off. Which also is, well, I'm kind of surprised at this, because there's a lot of things going on in the music to add to the experience. Of course, this is still like up to each and everybody on how they will kind of take it in, but I think that this is why this podcast kind of exists in the first place, to talk a little bit more about why these tracks exists and what they actually do for you and the experience. But with that said, I think it's time for us to get more into what the battle theme could be. So we're going to listen to the track Phasing the Elite, which is the elite type of battle theme, not the normal monsters. Let's see what you guys think of this one. Third track of the week, this was Phasing the Elite, and yeah, this is one of the battle themes, and as you can hear, this is more dramatic than what we heard previously in the episode. One thing I really do like and enjoy about this, that it is not just too much. As I've been reiterating multiple times in this episode, This is a deck building game where you can really plan your next move. If the music would have been more hectic instead of this dramaticism that it has, I think it really would have grinded a lot of people's gears. When you're playing and you have this tune play during the elite encounters, you're really feeling it. That's one thing for sure. It is to a really good extent of being dramatic that it really pushes. I don't really know exactly what it really pushes, to be honest, but you can feel the pressure from the music when you play this game, especially if you get dealt a really bad hand from your deck for some reason, because that will happen from time to time, as all cards are just shuffled into a deck and randomly pulled, and depending on what type of debuffs as well that you will obtain or acquire from these encounters may have a really strong and, well, bad situation for yourself, because there's a lot of different mechanics in this game. So the mechanics themselves are still kind of pretty straightforward, but adding like other cards that will kind of push your luck to some extent makes a whole lot of things. And as we went from facing the elite, that is a track that is played on multiple, like, it's not unique to any specific act and so on. But as this was the third track, we're also going into the third act of the game. This is called the Beyond. And when you get to this part, this is also one of the last acts in the beginning of the game, as you will not go ahead and just play the fourth act right away. When you complete these acts, these are also the situations where you get more points, etc. The further in you get into the game, the more XP you get for your character that you are playing. The XP are used to unlock more cards. I'm pretty sure I said that before, but I'm reiterating it so you just know for sure. You will unlock more cards, and when you get to a maximum level where you unlocked all cards, I actually do not know what will happen, because I actually haven't played one character for that long. One of my favorite characters are the Silent, and yeah, I've been playing that character a whole lot of times, but I haven't unlocked all the different cards. So it's going to be interesting to see what else is going to happen, because all the new cards that you get will basically open up another arsenal for you to pick from. All of them, it's not like, oh, you unlock the best card or something like that. They all play with different mechanics, and utilizing these mechanics is when you have more cards to pick from or have option to pick from. The more combos are opening up to you. Of course, some of these are like high risk, high rewards, like, hey, you get a lot of defense from this, but you will do what is called an exhaust of the card, which means you will permanently take it out of, or permanently out of that battle, take that card out of your deck. So if you get the other card, you will have, for example, like, hey, we will double your defense with the next card, and then you have this exhaust card that boosts a lot of defense. From that combination, you can take really big hits. But at the same time, maybe when you have these two cards, maybe the enemy is not attacking, for example. So sometimes you actually need to prepare for the next round, so to speak. No, I really enjoy this game. There's so much in-depth mechanic for this one. So another thing I wanted to talk about is the third, and well, I'm doing this quote rabbit ears here now, and this is one of the last characters that you were able to see in the beginning of this game. And this is the third character called the Effect. Basically, the robot joins the fray here. The character have gained sentience and seeks out to leave the Spire. The attacks of this character is more of a combination build style, as you are utilizing a range of powers, elemental evocations, and also utilizing unique build of orbs, which is, well, unique for this specific character. The character can channel bursts of damage or protect themselves. What I mean about that, you will basically have 3 slots or orb slots, and in the beginning you will have 2 orbs and the third one will be empty. And as you play cards, these cards will sometimes either utilize orbs or they will create new orbs. If you have more than 3, you will automatically activate the first orb that you played. So if you play a new one, it will take the one that is the oldest. And these orbs also have certain mechanics. As long as you have them as orbs, they will do something passively for you. Like a lightning orb will, for example, strike a random opponent on the enemy side, of course. If you have 3 orbs, you will deal 3 damage to 3 random units. So if there's only 1, you will deal all 3 damages to that specific character. You can have an ice orb which creates defense at the end of your turn, or you can have a dark orb that creates damage each turn it takes. So as long as it still is an orb, it will still create and generate damage. So the question is, how long will you hold this? And also, of course, as cards level up, you can also get the card that, for example, you utilize that the oldest orb that you have, but you will also create an exact copy of that one to be like a new orb. So, for example, if you have this dark, chaotic orb, you can create a whole lot of damage as long as you can keep this rolling, for example. So there's a lot of different things in this game. And as you notice throughout this episode, I do enjoy this game. It's not the game that as soon as I get home, it's like, hey, I want to play Slay the Spire. No, Slay the Spire is actually just a good game if you have like 20, 30 minutes over, because it does take some time to play this one. I don't think I've ever stopped in the middle of a run, so I usually just tend to play one run and then, I'm good for today. But I really enjoy this game. Highly recommend it to people that do like to strategize, because it does give a whole lot to the player when you actually succeed. It is really invigorating, and I love it. So with that said, I think it's time to go into the last track of the week. And yeah, when we're talking about more dramatic entrances and facing elite enemies, the last track of this week for the game Slay the Spire is, well, I already said the name title, Dramatic Entrance. I am so sorry to say this, but I actually do not know exactly when this track was played, or at least I don't remember specifically. This was the dramatic entrance, and it is so good. It really comes with what the title inspires here, a dramatic entrance. It really pops in well. It has this melody that is really gripping you, to be honest, at least for me. I really feel like something is about to go down on this one, and I'm getting defensive automatically a little bit, and that's kind of how I work when it comes to music sometimes. When I play something and I hear this type of track, it's just like when you're going to the movies and you're going to see a horror movie, and you can feel like either the music's going down a little bit, or it goes in with those thump thump, thump thump, like a heartbeat style. I automatically go into full defensive mode in order to prepare myself for what's about to happen. Well, this was the fourth and last track of the week, Dramatic Entrance, and I hope you guys enjoyed the picks I did for the music. I really thought it gave a little bit of width within the soundtrack, even though the soundtrack overall is kind of having this same kind of vibe all over it, but still comes with different types of styles, even though. So with the fourth track, of course, we're going to introduce the last act, the fourth act, which is called the ending. The ending is a very much special act, as this is actually just a bonus act, which can only be obtained by completing the first 3 acts with each character, minus the latest addition character. And specifically what I'm talking about here is the new character, the Watcher, which got added into the game in 2020. As I have not unlocked this character yet, I actually needed to read some guides and watch some gameplay of this character. But it is the final character. It builds around their deck, working with optimizing by manipulating and retaining cards, altogether with a great like energy generation, so you are able to play more and heavier card in the next round. Well, the Watcher is also a monk type of character, which, well, for me who plays a lot of D&D, for example, or Pathfinder, doesn't feel like the Watcher is much of a monk type character, but the visuals and everything says that this character is a monk. Well, when it comes to the fourth act, it is also very unique, as it only has one path to walk down on. Comparing to the other 1, 2, 3 acts, you are able to walk around and like make choices based on what you would like to obtain and work around. But in this fourth act, you only have one, and it includes one rest site where you can recover health or you can upgrade your card. You have one merchant, so you can either remove a card from, well, you can remove, as long as you have cash, do whatever you like, basically. You can buy relics, you can buy, what is called consumables, you can buy new cards, specific cards, and you can also have this card removal service. We haven't really talked much about the merchant, so it's a great chance for me to talk specifically about them. You also have one elite mob, and lastly, you have the final boss battle of the game, which is the Heart. And when it comes to the fourth act, this is the only character or boss battle you will have, not boss battle per se, but the only boss character you will be meeting in this act, as it is a bonus act. In comparison to Act 1, 2, 3, there are 3 possibilities of which boss you will meet when you reach the end of that act. So, as soon as you get to Act 4, you will only have one straight line to play ahead on, and you will only have one kind of, either you will die, or you will come out victorious by the end of it. So, for me, of course, I haven't reached this end yet. I actually don't think I've completed the game with the first 3 acts with any of the characters. The Silent is highly, like, my favorite one. I'm a little bit unsure if I want to have Defect or Ironclad as the second, because I just recently got into Defect and started playing with him, unlocking some cards. I'm just talking about having unlocked like 3, 4, maybe 5 cards on the Defect. I haven't unlocked a lot of cards on him. But I really like the mechanics that the Defect has. It can really give a lot of perspective on how to plan ahead. Ironclad is the most straightforward character, as sacrificing the different mechanics of either you want to attack really hard or you want to defend really hard. It comes out pretty straightforward. As the Silent one, you build a lot of mechanics, either by utilizing a lot of things during your turn, or you will try to push a little bit ahead for the next turn with generation of energy, etc. With the Defect, you have this full mechanic system with the orbs and so on, so you're not just planning your current turn, you're also planning like the middle of your next turn because of these orbs. So there's a lot of different mechanics going into this game, and it actually gives a whole lot of perspective, it gives a whole lot of variation for it, etc. Definitely As I said, high recommendation if you do love strategy type of games that is simple yet hard to master. But overall, it gives variation, which is great for these type of games. So with that said, I think it is time for me to close up Slay the Spire of this episode. And yeah, if you liked what I've been listening to, what I've been talking about, I think this is definitely a game for you. And considering what Megacrit is working on right now, they are not doing any more updates. If they are smaller updates for this, but they have gone out in some interview, from like right after they released The Watcher, that they are currently not working on anything related specifically for Slay the Spire anymore, as they are working on their next project. The interviewer also asked, "So, are we going to see a Slay the Spire 2?" And the answer was basically a winky face. So we don't know what that means. Of course, they are not gonna spoil to us what they are working for just yet. And I don't remember to have seen anything from Megacrit lately either, so... Well, I should have researched a little bit more if they have announced anything they're working on. But if people do know, make sure to comment that in the episode text so we can get a little bit more discussion. Are you excited for this? What did you think about Slay the Spire as a game? Did you love it? Did you adore it? Maybe you didn't like it. Maybe you think it was really bad. I would like to know a little bit. Are you a typical deck building player, for example, like me? I love and adore deck building games, even though I don't play Dominion specifically. But there are a whole lot of board games that I love and adore that has the deck building mechanic. So yeah, would love to hear more from you guys, the listeners, and see what you like and adore about this game, basically. So with that said, it is time to lock up this episode. This was episode 29, and other episodes of the Gameable audio, you'll find those on our homepage, videospelsklubben.se. You can also find the podcast on Spotify or in your closest podcast app. If there are any podcast app that it doesn't exist on, please reach out to me and I will make sure to try and get it up on those platforms as well. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find us there. Just giving a follow so you get the latest information, etc. It is easy to just do from there. And also, I just love to have more discussions with you guys. Maybe there are multiple games and so on that I haven't really heard of and haven't really put my mind into. So I would love to have more discussions with the listeners on this topic as well, so we can have more perspective on different games and different genres of video game music. You can also support this podcast for future content upgrades and quality upgrades, but also in the end, become like a fund for future composers. So think about becoming a Patreon. And our current awesome Patreon backers that we have today is Daniel Lunemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Thank you so much for being part and supporting this podcast. Links where you can either buy or support the composers behind the music that we listen to this episode, you will find those in our main post on videospelsklubben.se. The next episode theme that we're going to talk about is yet again going to be a special, but yes, this is going to be a very special episode as the composer for Go Mecha Ball, which is newly released, will be in that episode. So we're going to have Jonas Turner on that episode. I'm just super excited because this is definitely my game of the year without having played any other game new this year. But I freaking love and adore this game, and you will hear more about that in next week's episode. The podcast theme music was composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and with that said, do take care, everybody, and see you all guys next time!